I mean, I don't mind either way, but I was like, but when she's starting to differentiate between introduce versus recognize, I'm like, well, if I'm supposed to get the words right, I need it. Who all helped plan the meeting then?
It looks good on you. We are. We'll see if it continues this football. People appreciate it. Nothing lasts forever. All right, everything's back.
And Lisa, Bridget.
I
No, you can't come whisper in my ear. No. I don't mind going on the fly, but I'm gonna not do everything the right way. If you had a plan, I'm not gonna.
so let me the wrong book.
So he said Rhonda, Georgia, and Lisa.
Oh, to
Anyone?
help.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's Rhonda, Georgia, Lisa, Patty, Adam.
Patty and Adam.
Yep. And then Matt.
specific people that they
You want to ask him? Matt Ware is our PAC man.
Oh,
that's what I was thinking. I don't even,
So-
so I said I don't know.
So then we're going to say,
So it's like, I hear it. That's why I
so
said,
just it is. Is the
yeah,
booklet
it's in the
somewhere?
booklet.
That
right
was
there.
where.
Oh, this.
There.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you just generally say that was published in the.
Yeah. Does it? I was
Right.
in for the.
It was published on the
Okay.
27th and 4th.
Okay.
I don't,
Mark.
Okay.
I don't know enough to say the results. I mean, kids get older, they go through changes, whatever the case may be. But even with all of that, I would agree her response was good.
it's just
Okay.
Karen Dietrich.
No
And
Carol. Okay.
I did not see Carol's. And then introduce Brad to do the strategic plan update.
Okay,
He'll go
awesome.
through his slides, and then sit.
Not live.
It's not earlier, but it might be, they might have been.
Nicholas, they have a question for you.
A real question? Is it? Hi, everybody. Welcome. It is 6:05. Thanks for being here. We're going to call the meeting to order. The notice of this meeting was published on September 27th and October 4th in the Star, and copies distributed to the Sun Prairie Media Center and correspondence for the Wisconsin State Journal and Capital Times newspapers. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, and all of the other board members are also here tonight, so I just want to take a moment to introduce them if you just want to wave. So we have Latoya Holliday, our vice president. Just wave. Lisa Goldsby, our clerk and treasurer. Katie Kumoku, Steve Schrader, our governance officer. Bryn Horton, there you are. And Elwin's right here. Elwin Foster, that's everybody. Katie. Yes, I got Katie. And then I also want to recognize all of the district officials who are here tonight. So our superintendent, Dr. Brad Sarin, is here. Dr. Leonard is here. And Dr. Rykoff. And then anyone else, ooh, sorry for the feedback. If anyone else, do you want to just like stand and wave for a moment if you work in the district?
Oh, wow.
Yay, thank you all for coming tonight. All right, and then I also want to recognize everyone who took time to put this meeting together for us. So Rhonda, there you are, Georgia, Lisa, somewhere, Patty and Adam, there you are, and then Mark and Matt from the PAC. Thank you so much for supporting us tonight. Okay, yeah, should we do Thank you. Yeah, and then we have a former board member, Karen Dietrich is right over here. Thank you for coming, Karen. All right. Okay, and now I'm just going to let Dr. Sarin take over and introduce the strategic plan for the year.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. We know that budgets are only a reflection of the goals that a school district has. And so in the Sun Prairie Area School District, Matt, can you help me out? Do I have to reset it?
Might have got shut off.
Thank you. budgets are only a reflection of the school district's goals. And so one of the things that we are fortunate to have is a school board that outlines the goals for the Sun Prairie Area School District. And that's also a really good segue to introduce our Board of Education. And at this moment, this formal meeting to express our gratitude to the Board of Education for the unbelievable amount of work that the board does, puts time into more meetings than I think many people can imagine, most of which are on video if you'd like to watch all of them, to provide the guidance necessary to serve our kids, to serve the families in the 69 square miles and 10 municipalities that make up the Sun Prairie Area School District. And so it's the National Week to recognize school board members. And so I know that this is a little bit formal, but it is nice to take a moment and just appreciate just the unbelievable amount of work and formality that our school board members have to do as they serve, as they really serve as basically volunteers, the Sun Prairie Area School District. And so if you could join me in just expressing our gratitude to the board members with a round of applause, that would be great. And sincerely, thank you. I know that it's a complex position, and we really just appreciate the guidance that you give to the school district. We also have student school board members that serve, and they are really the liaisons between the buildings that we have, the high schools that we have, and the school board. And one of the things that our school board is really passionate about is uplifting student voice. And so for student school board members that are present today, can you please stand? Let's all recognize our student school board members. So organizations are naturally messy, where you've got all kinds of different people just trying to solve the problem that's on their desk. And what the board has done is it has given us a North Star around which we can point all of our arrows. So we know that the direction that we are all going in is to try to achieve what the board expects and is holding the administrative team accountable for making progress toward. And what we're fortunate to have in the Sun Prairie Area School District is a connection between what the community expects and what the board has outlined in its results policies. And so this strategic framework really outlines community expectations. And so we are really fortunate in that in the Sun Prairie Area School District, what the community expects, what the board is governing toward, and what the administrative team is working on all have a line of sight. What we also do is to try to report back to the community the progress, and in some case, the areas where we've fallen short along those lines of expectations. And so annually, the board expects us, and we then send out an annual report to all of the mailboxes that make up the Sun Prairie Area School District. And we know that there are many people in our school district that just don't have kids in school anymore. And so this report is meant to help people understand what the tax dollars are being spent on and what return on the investment community can expect for those precious tax dollars that we do have. And so I wanted to also recognize our communications team for not only working on this, but also making sure that our community is up to date on the progress that the Sun Prairie Area School District is making. Not only do we have a strategic framework here around which the board has results policies outlined, but we also have a number of core values that the school district uses as a touchstone as we make complicated decisions. And so this is another gift the Sun Prairie Area School District has when we're making complex decisions. When we talk about our instructional approach in supporting students, what we're really talking about is the Sun Prairie Area School District Instructional Framework. This was co-created by community members, by our staff, and by also our instructional leadership in order to give us an understanding of what defines instruction in Sun Prairie and how we are going to work so hard in order to unlock the potential of every single one of our 8,600 students that make up the classrooms across our 15 campuses of the Sun Prairie Area School District. And so we're really proud of this. It's on our school district website. And so when people want to know about how you are supporting students, we really are proud to be able to offer to the community and really the state of Wisconsin and the nation a web page where you can come to the sunprairieschools.org, put your cursor over district down to instructional framework, and be able to interact with a graphic that really outlines our approach and how we support all of our schools in unlocking the potential of our students. We also outline our approach to meeting the board's expectations of what we call is a scorecard. A scorecard is just a document that outlines the goals that we have that we have high confidence in that should make progress toward the board's expectations. And so this is our scorecard for 24-25. If you go to our school district webpage and you look up the strategic framework, scroll down, you will see our scorecards from not only 23, 24, 22, 23, and 21, 22. And so you'll see sort of our journey of continuous improvement in trying to make progress towards the board expectations through our scorecards. In the Sun Prairie Area School District, we focus on putting the precious tax dollars that we do have behind the highest confidence strategies that we believe have the most significant likelihood and chance that we're going to utilize those approaches consistently across our 15 campuses to unlock the potential of our students. And so one of the things that we want people to know about is the connection between what the board expects in results policies, which is based on community expectations, what's in scorecards, and how we formulate a budget around those high confidence strategies. And so that's what we call a strategic budget in the Sun Prairie Area School District. And so from here, I'm just going to express my gratitude and then hand it over to Shayna Lewis, who is next up and who's going to help us understand the procedures. And so from here, please introduce Shayna Lewis.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome. My name is Shayna Lewis. I serve as the legal counsel to the Sun Prairie Area School District. Tonight, I will assist the school district with questions regarding parliamentary procedure and other legal issues arising out of the annual meeting. It's important to know that the annual school district meeting plays an important and special role in the governance of a majority of school districts across the state of Wisconsin, including here in Sun Prairie. Electors in common and union high school districts have special powers reserved to them as a body pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 120.08. These powers are generally specified in Wisconsin Statute 120.10. This process gives the district's residents an opportunity to be heard with regard to the specific matters as set forth in the statutes. This is a meeting of the electors, not a meeting of the school board, which is why you don't see the school board up on the dais this evening. This is a meeting of the electors. As a result, the electors have the authority to make motions, second motions, and cast votes with regard to those motions. Because of that, it's important to know who is an elector. Eligible electors at this annual meeting are U.S. citizens, age 18 years or older, who have resided within the boundaries of the Sun Prairie Area School District for at least 28 consecutive days. If you do not meet all three of those criteria, you may not participate in the actions taken by the electors tonight. If you believe that someone is participating in this meeting who does not meet all of the criteria, the chairperson has the authority to challenge that individual's eligibility. While I don't expect that there is going to be an issue this evening, if it arises, we are prepared to address that. Votes will generally be cast as voice votes unless a different procedure is necessary in order to determine the will of the electors. We do have paper ballots available if necessary. In addition to the matters reserved for the electors during the annual meeting, the district will also be presenting its 2024-2025 budget tonight during the annual budget hearing. Members of the public will have the opportunity to be heard regarding the budget. Thank you very much. I hope to be of service this evening.
Thank you, Shayna. All right, so it is time to elect the chairperson for conducting the budget hearing in the annual meeting. Would anyone like to come up and make a motion?
Is this on? Steve Schrader, 1300 Fitness Run in Sun Prairie. I nominate Diana McFarland to be chair of this meeting.
Are there any other nominations? I'll give it another chance. Are there any other nominations? one more time. Would anyone else like to make a nomination?
Okay, we can vote. So all those in favor?
All right, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, lovely. Okay, so then it is the 2023-24 Budget Summary Report by Bill Fry, our Director of Business and Finance.
Okay, welcome everyone. So I'm going to go over the budget report for 24-25. So starting off with revenue caps, just explaining how school districts are funded, and then we'll explain how the district's budget was built this year. So revenue caps started in 1993 with Governor Thompson. At that time, they were tied to inflation. I'll explain that a little bit more in a minute here. But revenue caps in its simplest form is you take your revenue cap, what school districts can spend, minus your state aid, and that gives you your local property taxes. So we'll spend a lot of time on property taxes here in a minute. I'm gonna move this way so I can see better. Okay. First, the part of the revenue cap that I want to start off first was with our enrollment. Enrollment's a big part of the district's revenue cap. Sorry about that. Enrollment's a big part of the district's revenue cap. A 3-year trend is used. You can see it. We built our district's budget this year on an enrollment increase of 60. We have a very detailed enrollment projections by University of Wisconsin that we use for that. We also have used Mark Roffers in the past. What we do, looking at that enrollment projection and then building the budget off of that, we saw our enrollment trend was increasing over this last spring, so we built our budget in front of you tonight with 60 new students. As we just finished up our third Friday count, and the third Friday count's the official count for all school districts in the state of Wisconsin for their enrollment, our enrollment went up by 187 students. So the budget that you see in front of you is built on 60. We obviously can't change that until the end of October, but I just want to say that there will be budget changes that the school board will need to approve. They approve the official budget at the end of October. So again, our enrollment this year went up by 187 students. Then we take that number, put it into the revenue cap, and that determines our budget funding too. So this slide is our 10-year district enrollment. You can see 10 years ago, and then for about the first 5 years of that 10 years, our enrollment grew by about 150 to 200 students a year. Then in about 2020, with COVID, we did have a slight decline in our enrollment. And then last year, our enrollment went up by 66 kids. And again, remember this year, we're going up by 187 students. So you can see how the enrollment has evolved over the last 10 years. So as I said, the state controls school districts and what we can spend. Every 2 years, the state approves a biannual budget. In that budget, which incorporates a lot of different things on transportation and lots of different areas of the state budget, but they do decide what school districts can spend on a per student basis. So for the 24-25 budget, which is part of the state budget, we know we can spend $325 more per student. And when I say school, Sun Prairie, that's all school districts in the state can spend $325 more per student. That $325 might sound like a lot of money, but when you look at what we spend on a per student basis of about $13,500, that is less, or about 2.4% increase. So it does not keep up with inflation. But it is, again, a $325 increase per pupil. The state did put a lot of money into what's called equalized aid. If you remember in the first slide I showed you, that equalized aid doesn't help school districts spend more. That just reduces the tax burden on our taxpayers. So per pupil spending, I just want to spend a little bit more time on this. The state of Wisconsin, you can see in 2002, we were 11th in the country on what we spent on a per student basis for public education, and 11th in the country. 20 years later, so not that long of a period later, we're now 25th in the country on spending on a per pupil basis. So you can see there's been a dramatic decrease in the per pupil spending that the state of Wisconsin allocates for Wisconsin school districts. So equalized aid, I mentioned that before. Equalized aid is a big portion of our budget. We receive it from the state. That the allocation or the formula for equalized aid is on a per student basis. So it looks at how many students we have. It looks at a district's property value. For Sun Prairie, we're about an average district compared to like a Beloit school district would be a property poor district versus a Whitefish Bay, which would be a property rich district. So on average across the state, we're about an average school district for property value. It then determines what our property value equalized aid would be for the district, and that again goes into that formula. So equalized aid, we received on July 1st our estimate from DPI of 61.3 million. We'll receive the final equalized aid amount on October 15th. So that, as I mentioned before, there's lots of pieces of the budget. This has to still be worked out. Enrollment was one of them. The equalized aid by the state was one of them. But we are anticipating about an 8.5% increase in our equalized aid, which is good news. That's good news for taxpayers, but remember that does not mean that the school district gets to spend 8.5% more. So as Brad said in his presentation, what we do when we build the budget, we try to really build the budget looking at our strategic framework so that the things that are in the budget or removed from the budget meet our strategic framework. So we spend a lot of time on that budget process, strategic budget building process. We start really diving into the following year's budget in September. So September of 23, we started looking at this budget. Again, really looking at how we can build it strategically. Looking at staffing, because staffing is more than 80% of our budget, so we do spend a lot of time on staffing in our budget, and I will say the school board has also spent a lot of time on staffing this last year. We have a very detailed, and I know it's in your booklet, of the budget calendar, step by step, and showing how that budget started in September and then kind of goes through the next basically 2 years to get to the end of the budget cycle. We also use a lot of analytics by a company called Forecast 5, and you'll see some of those analytics in the next few slides. But when we're looking at analytics, that's really helping us compare us to other districts in Dane County, other districts in the state. Again, we use analytics. The other thing I do for the school board is I do 2 budget forecast models, and really a budget forecast model says where we're going to be for the next year, and then looking out 4 to 5 years, what is the budget picture for this Sun Prairie School District. So as I mentioned, spending a lot of time on the strategic budget process. These are the things that rose to the top on that process this last year. I won't go through all of them. You can read those in front of you. But the first one is probably definitely the biggest ticket item, but $1 million for the TLE budget for 6th through 12th grade literacy and math program. After each of these items, you can see the link to the school board's policy or SR, in this case SR2, but you can see all the things that are linked in there. Again, you can see these are the things that were either added or in some cases at the high school level we reallocated staff and had to reduce some staffing. That was been an emphasis of the school board again this last year. So I always like to show this slide. Sun Prairie's been very adamant to keep our class sizes about where they've been. This year's budget, again, 24-25 budget does keep our class sizes where they've been in the past. So just to reiterate, there is no planned increase in class sizes. We try to stay to these guidelines as best as we can. I should mention, I didn't mention that on the first slide, you also see on these slides, I try to tie as many of the budget slides to the student or the framework of district, so you can see in this one again ties to the student experience. So staffing, as I mentioned, is a big part of our district's budget. Over 80% of our budgets are staffing. At this point, when the budget was presented to the school board and they approved the budget in August, there was an addition of 3 additional professional educators or teachers. You can see the funding for those on the right-hand side. Transfer service, that typically is for special education students, students that move into our district that we increase funding or staffing for. So there's 3 additional staff members in the budget. I will say since I mentioned our enrollment increased quite a bit more than we had originally budgeted for, we did have to add 5 teachers late in June and July, or actually July and August, in instructional aid. Those increase in staffing will be presented to the school board in October when they see the final budget. So mentioning staffing or just drilling down on staffing a little bit more, this slide shows how Sun Prairie compares to all Dane County districts for all staff. So this would be every teacher, administrators, aides, things like that. Admin assistants would be on this slide. So you can see on the slide that with the arrow, that Sun Prairie has about 6.4. For every 6.4 students, there's a staff member. Again, it could be a teacher, it could be an administrator, it could be an instructional aide, but a staff member. So pretty close to other districts right around us, the Middletons. But you can see again how we compare to Dane County average. On this slide, we get asked this quite a bit, is how does administration, so this slide is district office or district support center administration, so this would be the superintendents, myself and some other directors. How do we compare to other Dane County districts? You can see again on the slide how we compare for district support center administration. Another emphasis of our school board and administration has been to increase our percentage of teachers or professional educators, staff of color. So you can see over the last 5 years how that has that percentage has increased. So that's really good news. Again, we want to continue to increase that, but you can see that our percentage of staff of color has increased. So spending a little bit more time on staffing, because again, that is about 82% of our budget. Just want to talk about the staffing and what the budgets in front of you has. So for I'm going to break it down into our different groups. Our professional educators received a 4.12% COLA increase. That's what the state said COLA was for school districts for last year. So 4.1%, 4.12% for COLA, and that's about $2 million. I won't go through all the information on all the slides, but for teachers, I'll kind of go through it. Teachers also can, if they get professional development 24 hours, they are entitled to 1.25% of their salary for an increase on top of their COLA increase. So on average, the average teacher, or the average compensation for teachers last year for salary increase was 5.12%. Again, I won't go through the other three groups: support staff, administrative support, and administrators. Very similar. All the groups received a COLA increase of 4.12%, and then there's different professional development for all those different groups, but they also have a opportunity to increase their salary through professional development. Then the other side of salary is benefits, health insurance for our district. We were very fortunate for many years. Our health insurance did not increase because we bid it out 5 years ago and got a lock of 0%. We're coming off of that, so now for next year, we've capped our health insurance increase at 12%. We have made some plan modifications in our health insurance to actually get that down to 12%. Our renewal for health insurance is January 1st, so even though it's a 12% increase, only 6% of it will hit this fiscal year. But our total payment for health insurance is just over $14 million. Our dental insurance, we're self-funded for dental insurance. We've been that way for quite a few years. We've been having really good returns on dental, so there's no increase for dental insurance. And our total budget for dental insurance is $1.4 million. Wisconsin Retirement System is our retirement system for all our employees. The district pays half of that, and the employees pay half of that share. The district's portion of Wisconsin Retirement System is $5.6 million. So our overall budget, all the things I just talked about is kind of our general budget, which is called Fund 10. Our revenue budget is $131.7 million. Our expense budget is $135.4 million. So we have a deficit budget in front of you. We've been very upfront with the school board talking about that. So $3.7 million, if everything worked out perfectly in the budget, which it won't, but if everything does work out perfectly, we'd have a $3.7 million deficit with this budget. The school board has been very proactive in the past and put money of fund balance into what's called budget stabilization fund balance. So if needed, that $3.7 million would come out of that budget stabilization fund balance. The overall budget, district budget, so we have the general budget, what I just mentioned. Then we also have a special education fund, which is $25.4 million. I won't go through all these different funds, but you can see there's different funds for school nutrition, different funds for community service. The total district budget is just over $200 million. So we have a debt levy. So the debt levies for the building projects that we've done over the last 20 years. We borrow that money and then pay it off over 20 years. So the debt levy for voter-approved referendum projects is $24.2 million this next year. We have one other levy, or one other fund that we levy for. That's our community service levy. The programs in there, you can read those off, but things like community schools, community liaisons, things like that make up our community service levy. Our projected levy is $1 million for the community service, or sometimes called Fund 80 levy. So our total projected levy, you can see our general fund is actually projected to go down. Again, that's mostly in part till we got that large increase in state aid. Our debt levy, you can see that, you can see all the levies. So the total levy is almost 79 million, 2.7% increase in the levy. Our mill rate would be projected to go down to 9.29, but just remember, we do have to make, unfortunately, how the state has annual meetings and state budgets, we still have to have another budget that goes to the school board that will encompass the enrollment increases I talked about, the staffing increases. So just that mill rate's definitely in flux right now. One thing I do want to point out is getting asked more and more the cost of charter and voucher programs for the Sun Prairie School District. So what this slide represents is money that it's not an impact on the school budget. It doesn't cost our district budget money, but is an impact on taxpayers. So this $1.1 million that you see in front of you gets added to all Sun Prairie Area School District's residents to add up to $1.1 million. So just to be clear on that, how that works, it is added money to the levy that gets paid out to charter and voucher programs. So our mill rate or tax rate history, 5-year history on that, you can see just a couple years ago, or 5 years ago at this point, we were over $13 per thousand. And our last year's mill rate was $9.86. One other thing I want to just hit on is our fund balance. We have built up our fund balance, as I kind of mentioned before, so that's good news. This slide is one of those analytics that I talk about, comparing us to other districts roughly our size, so a little bit smaller, a little bit bigger. You can see our fund balance is a little bit below average, but I will say the school board's been very good with building that up over the last few years. So again, that fund balance helps us in case we have emergencies, helps us so we don't have to short-term borrow and things like that. But you can see how our fund balance compares to other districts. Again, we're still on the lower end for fund balance. So I do want to mention the November 5th referendum. We just had an open house on that. So this budget was presented with the assumption that that referendum fails. I obviously had to build a budget and present it to the school board. At the end of October, I mentioned that. That's when the school board approves the budget. And then at the end of October, what happens with school districts that are having a November 5th referendum, school boards across the state will pass two budgets. One of the referendum fails, that's the budget, and the second budget they'll see is if the referendum passes. So that's when the school board will act on that, so I just want to be clear about that. Everything you've seen or see in the annual meeting booklet is assuming that the referendum failed. The reason that the school board has to approve two budgets at the end of October, soon after that, we have to send a levy, the tax levies to the municipalities, so there's a really short turnaround for that. So again, very typical for school districts to pass two budgets when there's a referendum in November. Also wanted to just point out, so tonight we're here for the annual meeting. It's not a big discussion on the November 5th operating referendum. Again, we've had many open houses on it. We just had one tonight. We'll have more coming up. Just wanted to point that out. Yeah, and we encourage residents to come to those meetings if they have discussions about the referendum. So the next steps in the budget process, I mentioned that a little bit already, but October 15th is when we receive our state aid, that determination of the state aid, which is important because then that determines how much the tax levy will be officially. We also, as I mentioned before, we have to update the budget with our new enrollment numbers and some expenses with that, again, mostly in staffing. And then by October 31st, by state statute, the school board needs to approve a budget. Again, this year they'll be actually approving two budgets. So with that, I'm going to just say thanks. I think we open up to the budget hearing now, but I'll be here to answer any questions. But again, thanks for everyone's participation. It's great to see everyone here, and we can open it up for questions, I think.
All right. If anyone would like to come up to the microphone and share their thoughts on the budget, this is your opportunity to do so. I'm trying to not get too close because it seems to give feedback. If anyone would like to come up to the microphone and share their thoughts on the budget, this is the opportunity for anyone in the audience to come up and do that now.
I'm here to file a motion. Is this the time to do that? No.
Not with regard to the annual meeting, no. This is the budget hearing?
Right. You're here for busing, right? That'd be later then.
I am.
All right, so in just a minute.
Yep.
Not quite yet. Does anyone have comments they would like to make on the budget specifically?
Do I need to give my address?
Yeah, name and address, I believe.
Lance Sannon, 3215 Kings Forest Court. Phil, you had mentioned we hired some new teachers based on the addition of our enrollment in July and August, I believe that was. Can you just clarify how many teachers we hired? I missed that part.
Let me just pull that up here pretty quickly for you. Do you want to just know all the teachers we've hired for this budget, or just the ones in July or August?
The ones that were probably hired due to the
Yep.
160-some
Got it.
new students.
Yeah, so I'm trying to read this pretty quickly. At Creekside, first grade teacher, Creekside, third grade teacher, C.H. Bird, kindergarten teacher, Royal Oaks, kindergarten teacher. And quite a few of these administrators are here, so hopefully they're confirming that what I'm saying. Central Heights, we hired a sixth grade teacher. Patrick Marsh, we hired an eighth grade teacher. I think that's about it.
So I counted 6, I believe it was.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
And that was due strictly to the increased enrollment?
Yeah, we would, yes, absolutely. We don't want to hire teachers that late. That's not our purpose. Chris Sadler and I and administration really follow enrollment as it's going in spring and summer, work with principals. So yeah, that is not ideal by any stretch, but yet, and especially when we didn't know our enrollment was going to increase by that, it wasn't projected to increase that much. So when I'm tracking enrollment and seeing that a kindergarten section at Creekside, for example, typically only to have 60 kids in kindergarten, 3 sections of 20, and now they're at 64. That's why we'd add a teacher at Creekside, for example. So,
Thank you.
Just name and address.
Sure, Liz Merrick, 3027 Lyman's Run. Phil, I just have one question about teaching and learning budget. I saw an increase of $1 million for secondary reading and math. Is there anything more specific? That's a lot of money.
sure, Steph, do you want to? We'll have the expert answer that, not the director of finance.
Yeah, absolutely happy to address that. So the entire textbook adoption fund for 23-24 went to the purchase of elementary materials, 4K through 5, CKLA. We are eligible for up to half of that being reimbursed by the state, which would be $600,000. They have 2 $25 million payments. Everybody that applies, we might get half of that back, and we've seen nothing yet. Because we spent all of that money on that adoption, we needed additional monies in this year to be able to cover the 612 ELA, and then we need to upgrade our 612 math materials because we're shifting from the Common Core math to the Wisconsin Model Academic Standards for math. So I'd say the root cause underneath all of it was the science of reading research, complying with Act 20, and we do see it to be a really good way. We're seeing bellwether signs of increased academic outcomes at the early elementary level.
Yeah, feel free to come up. And I was just informed if people are commenting, it's super helpful if you fill out a comment card down at the bottom so we can track the questions in the minutes. But feel free to share first.
Jennifer Hansen, 671 Broadway Drive. The third Friday count number was what?
Third Friday count, our head count was up 187.
Up 187. What is the actual count number?
Oh, we're 5 short of 8,600, so 8,595.
Okay. And how much are we spending per student?
On a revenue cap basis, that's what we determine our budget off. It's just between 13,500 and 14,000, somewhere in there. And that amount is determined, the reason I can't give you an exact amount, it determines how much transfer service we get each year, and there's other factors, but somewhere in that area is how much we spend per student.
And the 187 student head count is from the third Friday count in 2023?
No, this year, just 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now. Oh, the increase, I'm sorry, the increase, yes, is from last year. 187 increase from last year's third Friday count, yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood that.
Do you need, if she's trying to do math, the 3-year rolling average would, okay.
Yeah, I guess if the question is, do we get funding for 187 students times the 14,000? You do, but then you have to divide that by 3 because it's on a 3-year average.
Last call, any other budgetary related comments, questions?
You're good.
All right. So then, thank you so much, Phil. So then we'll move on to item 6, the treasurer's report by our board treasurer, Lisa Goldsberry.
Hi, I'm Lisa Goldsberry. I'm the treasurer for Sun Prairie Area School District School Board. The 2023-2024 school audit was completed by the accounting firm of Johnson & Block CPA. The fieldwork was completed by August 15th. The school board will review the audit in detail with the accounting firm in December or January. Complete copies of the audit financial statements will be available at the district office and on the district's website on or about December 22nd of 2024. All audit information required by DPI was completed in a timely manner, and this concludes the treasurer's report for the 2024-2025 annual meeting. Thank you.
Doing business, yeah.
All right. Okay, so then we're moving on to item 7. 7.01 is setting the annual salaries of school board members for 2024-25. So yeah, is there a motion?
And there are sample motions.
Yep, so we're on item 7.01, setting the annual salaries of school board members for the 2024-25 school year, and we're looking for a motion from someone in the audience who is not a school board member. There are sample motions. Oh, it can be a school board member too, okay. Thanks. So there are sample motions right in the book.
They could fill out their name or say it.
Yeah, my name is Roger Federley from the town of Sun Prairie. I was on a school board many years ago, and we allowed 2 school board members to go on annual junkets to conferences, National School Board Association. I noticed that this school board spends a lot of money on themselves. They're on junkets all the time. So far this year, you've been on 4. And I did the calculation on the wisdom sharing. Do I have your attention? I looked at the expenses on the wisdom sharing, and there were 6 school board members went on it, Seattle, Washington, and 2 administrators. So the school board is spending a lot of money, and they want us to prove, or the electors have the authority to approve their expenditures. And we don't know what their expenditures are. Can you tell me what the expenditures are? What is your budget for school board members this year? Maybe Phil can answer that.
So that's, technically speaking, that was a question that could have been asked during the annual budget hearing. If Phil can answer that question, do we have that information? Mr. Federley, we can certainly get that information to you. We do not have that information right now.
Mm-hmm.
This is the time when the electors would make a motion regarding setting the salaries of school board members? Is that something?
Well, not only the salaries, I would just say, understand the expenditures, school board expenditures,
Correct.
not just the salaries.
Understand.
Oh, this one is just for the salaries? See, you don't have good enough communication system here so that I can hear where you are on the agenda. So, I would like to see the school board start and keep track of expenditures or provide a separate budget or a separate line item for the school board spending. So next year, when the time comes to approve expenditures for the school board, we know what we're doing. I won't make a motion to approve school board members' salaries. I'll let someone else do it. I don't think they should get any more than what they're getting now. Thank you.
Kurt Mold, 2132 Lonnie Lane. I move to approve school board salaries as printed in the budget guide, staying the same as this previous year.
Do we need a second? Yes, we do. Would anyone like to make a second to that motion?
Heather Dubois Bernard, 681 Broadway Drive. I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Yep.
We do a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed?
Yep.
All right, that carries. Then we'll move on to 7.02, the reimbursement of school board members' expenses. So again, we're just looking for a motion, and the sample motions are right in the guide, right in the book. Page 11, thank you. We're on 7.02, the reimbursement of school board members' expenses. So we're just looking to see if anyone would like to make a motion regarding 7.02. And page 11 has sample motions.
Heather Dubois Bernard, I move to authorize the payment of actual and necessary expenses of a school board member when traveling in the performance of duties.
And then we're looking for anyone who would like to second a motion.
Shandu Vamori, 1098 Terra Drive, I second that.
And then I'll just open the floor if anyone wants to discuss that further before the vote.
Jennifer Hansen, 671 Broadway Drive. I would like the definition of what is constituted as a necessary expenditure.
There is no statutory definition for necessary. Typically, it is the school board that has the authority as an entity, not an individual school board member, but an entity to determine what is necessary for the school board to conduct business. School boards have broad powers in the state of Wisconsin, and one of those broad powers is to determine what information, resources, and networking or access to information they need in order to conduct the business of the school board. So I would advise that while I cannot give you a definition of necessary, the school board studies all of the requests for access to reimbursement for resources, field trips, workshops, what have you, to determine whether it truly is necessary.
So the board itself determines what is necessary and reimbursable to themselves.
The individual school board member who is seeking reimbursement does not make that decision alone. The elected officials, the board members that you as a school district elected to operate and govern and manage the school district, make those decisions as well as many other important decisions for the school district.
I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time, but can I get a number of what that was in the last budget?
I do believe that that was a question that was asked by Mr. Federley. That is not information that we have readily available this evening, as I understand it, but certainly we can provide that information subsequently to this meeting, or subsequent to this meeting.
And that will be posted on the district website?
I did not say that. I certainly am. You have people here who are listening who make those decisions. I do not have the authority to make that decision.
So how will that information be shared or communicated to those of us that want it?
Phil, is that something?
Could you write your name?
I would prefer it would be publicly shared.
So that is something that is up to the school district. If you are making a records request for information, they can certainly provide that to you.
An open book record request, correct?
I don't know what an open book record request is, but in the event that you want this information, the district will provide it to you.
Any further discussion on this item? Okay, so just as a reminder, we have a motion to authorize the payment of actual and necessary expenses of a school board member when traveling in the performance of duties. That's what's on the floor right now. So can we do an all in favor? Say aye. Any opposed? Gotcha, Roger. All right, so that carries, and we will move on to 7.03, which is setting the date and time for the 2025-26 annual meeting, or authorizing the school board to set the date and time. Is that still on page 11, the recommended? So we're just looking for someone to bravely come on up and make a motion.
I move the date of the 25-26 annual meeting to be set by a date and time determined by the school board at a future time.
And I'll second it.
We need names.
Oh, sorry. Well, Heather said her name already a couple of times.
Rhonda Page,
Do you need address?
Sure, let's hear it.
2229 County Road T.
Thank you. All right, all in favor say, oh, any discussion? Does anyone want to discuss the date and time of the annual meeting? We good? Okay. So all in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, gotcha, Roger. Okay, so then this is 7.04, other business as permitted at the annual meeting. So if anyone has other business they'd like to discuss, come on up.
Hi, I'm Gila Docks, 150 Schneider Road. I'm here to make a motion to have the busing distance reduced at least by a half mile. At the least. For all Sun Prairie schools.
So in anticipation of this motion, we just wanted to make sure that, that the electors are aware that the Wisconsin statutes require school boards to provide transportation to and from public school for students who reside in the school district 2 miles or more from the nearest public school that they are entitled to attend. However, at the annual meeting, the electors may vote to reduce that 2-mile minimum distance. So it is my understanding that this motion reduce that 2-mile minimum to 1.5 miles?
It is my understanding that it is already 1.5. So this is a motion to reduce it by another half.
To 1
To
mile.
1 mile.
Okay.
And it hasn't been addressed in like the last decade.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, all of them by half a mile at least.
Yeah, I'm just going to repeat so everyone can hear that. So currently, the law requires 2 miles or further to be bused. Right now in Sun Prairie, our elementary students who are 1 mile or further away are bused, and our secondary students who are 1.5 miles or further away are bused. That's the current state. So the motion that's being suggested is to reduce everyone by half a mile, which would mean that elementary students half a mile from school or further, and secondary students 1 mile from school or further would receive busing.
Yes.
All right. Would anyone like to second that motion? Yeah, happy to. So right now, the law requires that students be bused to school if they live 2 miles or further away. Currently, Sun Prairie buses students, secondary students, who are 1.5 miles away, and elementary students who are 1 mile away. And the motion right now being made is to reduce that distance by half a mile. So elementary students who live half a mile or more from school would receive busing, and secondary students who live 1 mile or further away from school would receive busing. Yep, and right now we have a motion, and we're waiting to see if anyone would like to second that motion. All right, so seeing none, that fails right there, sorry.
Really? You need a second in order to have the motion.
I could have brought somebody with me.
Is there any other business for 7.04? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to 7.05. This is where we'll set the property tax levy for the 2024-25 school year. And again, the sample motions are right in the book, so we're just looking for someone to come on up and make a motion.
Kurt Mold, I move to approve a tax levy in the amount of $78,995,857 upon all taxable property in the Sun Prairie Area School District for the purposes of operating and maintaining the district schools, community service programs, and for paying the debt for school projects.
Do we have a second?
Steve Schrader, I'll second that.
Discussion? Would anyone like to discuss this? Have a comment or question to share? Good. All right. Then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, that carries. And then we are at item 8, motion to adjourn. Are you doing all in favor there? All in favor? Aye. Have a wonderful night, everybody.